They laughed at me in front of everyone, my own family, my own blood, standing in that living room, the one I grew up in, while they passed around my father's will like it was a joke. "You're not getting anything," my uncle said. "You never were." And everyone laughed. What they didn't know was that I was already holding the document that would take everything from them. My name is Ryan. 3 months before that night, I had nothing. Lost my job, lost my apartment. My savings account read $42. I moved back into my childhood home not because I wanted to, but because I had nowhere else to go. My father had passed away 6 weeks earlier, and the family I returned to, they weren't grieving. They were calculating. My uncle Tariq had been managing my father's business for years. My 2 cousins treated the house like it was already theirs. My aunt barely looked at me. I was the struggling one, the disappointment, the one who had wasted his potential. They reminded me of that every single day. It was a Thursday evening when they called me downstairs. I thought it was dinner. It wasn't. The whole family was there. Aunts, cousins, even neighbors I barely recognized. My uncle sat at the head of the table, my father's chair. He slid a document across the table. "Your father updated his will 2 months before he died," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You've been removed. Everything goes to the business, which means to us." Someone snickered. I heard it clearly. "He always said Ryan couldn't handle responsibility," my cousin added. Guess Baba agreed in the end. I looked at the paper. I looked at the room. 30 people watching me fall apart. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just nodded, folded my hands, and said, "Okay." They took my silence as defeat. That was their first mistake. Here's what none of them knew. 3 days before my father died, he had called me, not Tariq, not the cousins, me. He was barely able to speak, but he told me something, and he made me promise to check something, a specific drawer in his study, the one with the broken lock. I had already been to that drawer, and what I found there changed everything. The weeks after that Thursday were the loneliest of my life. I was still living in the house. Technically, they couldn't remove me yet, but they made sure I knew I didn't belong. My meals were cold. The hot water somehow always ran out before I woke. Small things, petty things, but they added up. I'd lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, hearing my father's voice in my head. "Ryan, don't trust everything you see. Look deeper." He used to say that when I was a child. I thought he was talking about people. Turns out, he was talking about documents. I thought about the nights I'd watched him work late, the way he'd always kept me at a distance from the business. Not out of distrust, I finally realized, but out of protection. He knew something I didn't. Until now. I didn't tell anyone what I found. Instead, I started reading every document in that drawer, every contract, every amendment, every handwritten note. My father had been meticulous. He had dated everything, signed everything. Some papers were notarized. I took photos of everything on my phone. Then I made one phone call to a lawyer outside the city, someone no one in the family knew. He listened to me for 40 minutes. Then he said, "Ryan, do you understand what you're holding?" I was beginning to. The updated will my uncle had presented, it was dated 6 weeks before my father died. But there was a second document, dated 4 weeks before he died, a codicil, a legal amendment, and it bore my father's signature a witness signature, and a notary stamp. My uncle had shown everyone the first version. He had hidden the second. My uncle started getting more aggressive around that time. He wanted me out of the house, offered me money, a small sum, pathetic really, to move on quietly. I smiled and said I'd think about it. My cousin came to me one morning, suddenly friendly, asking if I needed help finding a job. If I wanted, he could put in a word somewhere. I thanked him warmly. My aunt pulled me aside and told me my father had always worried about me, that this was for my own good, that I should accept reality. I have accepted reality, I told her calmly. Completely. She didn't know what to do with that answer. None of them did. Because they were used to a version of me that would argue, or beg, or collapse. This version of me was different. And they could feel it. They just couldn't name it. The lawyer filed the paperwork on a Monday. I remember the exact moment I pressed send on that email confirmation. I was sitting in my car, parked outside the house, engine off. My hands were completely steady. The legal notice would arrive in 3 to 5 business days. My uncle was planning a dinner that Friday, a celebration apparently, finalizing the transfer of the business into his name. He'd invited the same people who'd watched me get humiliated. He had no idea. The documents were already certified. The original will had already been logged with the court. The fraud claim had already been filed. And that Friday dinner, it was about to become the most important night of his life, for all the wrong reasons. They were mid-toast when the doorbell rang. A court-appointed officer. 2 copies of a legal notice, one for my uncle, one for his attorney of record, who happened to be sitting at the table. I watched my uncle open the envelope. I watched his face go from confusion to color. "What is this?" he whispered. "It's the codicil," I said quietly. "The one you didn't show anyone. The one that reinstates me as primary heir and names you as a person of interest in document suppression." The table went silent. That's not... Notarized, I said. Witnessed. Dated. And now logged with the civil court. My cousin stood up. "This is insane. You're lying." I placed a folder on the table. Copies of every document. The original amendment. The notary record. The timestamps. "My father called me 3 days before he died," I said. "He told me where to look. He knew, Tariq. He knew what you were planning. That's why he made sure I could find this." My uncle sat down slowly, like someone had removed his bones. The room was completely silent. And for the first time in my life, I was the one standing at the head of that table. The legal process took 4 months. My uncle's claim to the business was invalidated. The fraudulent will presentation became a separate matter for the courts. His attorney faced a review board. The house, my father's house, was confirmed as mine. My cousin stopped calling. My aunt sent one message, 3 lines long, something between an apology and an excuse. I read it once and didn't reply. Some of the extended family reached out. Awkward, uncertain. A few admitted they'd felt something was wrong that Thursday night, but hadn't spoken up. I didn't carry anger toward them. I just carried distance. I still live in that house. I had my father's study repainted. New curtains. I moved his chair, the one my uncle had claimed, back to where it always stood. Sometimes I sit in it. Not out of triumph, just to feel close to him. He didn't leave me power. He left me truth. And he trusted me, quietly, carefully, to find it at the right moment. I didn't destroy my family. They built something dishonest, and they handed me the tools to let it fall. I just let it fall.